Okay, and let me just get a new document going here. And then I shall share screen. Okay, cool. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. I'm just going to pop over to my coding environment there. I've got an HTML file started, and I guess I should go ahead and save it somewhere. And I will put this under demos, I suppose. And this is, what is this? Unit 14, isn't it? Wow, craziness. Sorry, hang on a second here. Okay, so Unit 14 is just going to be my little root directory for the demo here. You guys know how to name something to be the indexed homepage. Name it index.html. I may ask you to do that. So remember that part. And then, like I was saying before, this is supposed to be a cumulative test, right? So we're supposed to test on all the stuff from the class. I'm not really going to do much of that. I mean, I'm going to make sure there's some HTML, a little bit of CSS, not much. And then, you know, a little bit of jQuery, which will at least mostly be extra credit. I'm not sure if all of it will. Let's go ahead and check it out here. So the first thing that I will almost certainly ask you to do is to create a document in HTML. You guys know how to do that at this point. And so making the basic elements. Charset equals UTF-8. I might offer some extra credit, stated or unstated, to do the viewport meta, but it will be extra credit either way. N equals viewport, content equals, and the one that I've been doing in class is, there are different versions of these, by the way. There's different configurations that are all intended to accomplish more or less the same thing. This is the one that I've used for a long time. That was just a comment. Initial scale equals 1. Okay, so that viewport meta will be extra credit if it's there at all. And I will probably tell you what the document should be named. Just remember that the document name or the document title is not the same thing as the file name. So if the file name is index, you could still be asked to say, yeah, the title of the document should be final exam. And of course, you know that you're supposed to put that in here. Then it might not be a bad idea to say, oh, okay, well, what we talked about, often the stuff that's in the title might be inside, you know, a heading up here. So maybe I'll go ahead and put a header with an H1 at the top that says final exam, something like that. And then at this point, you'd be done getting the basic document done. Other than creating the basic document here, the main portion of the points for the markup, which will be most of the points in the exam, will be to build a form. And I will ask for several things here. I'm going to be pretty specific in what I ask for. I'm not going to do the thing for the final where I give you some content and say, hey, mark this up. There was some confusion about it before. Just be aware, you guys, if you do get into web development at all, that's often how you receive content from clients. They'll give you a plain text file with some content, or maybe a Word document with some content or something like that. And you're expected to know how to grab that content and build it into an HTML page. That was the whole idea behind giving the exam that way. But I won't do it this time. Make sure everything is, I will give you a PDF or a Word document or something of just explicit directions. Do this, do that, do the other thing. So that it'll be a little different from the midterm, unfortunately. Okay, so the form element, and the form element, I'll probably say something like, yeah, there are going to be two elements inside the form element. There will be a field set and a submit button. So go ahead and build a field set here. These field sets are very flexible. Someone was asking me during office hours on Tuesday, hey, can I have more than one field set, or can I have like several radio groups within one field set, or do I have to split them up? And really, you can do what you want to. It's meant as an visual organizational tool, right? It doesn't actually affect how content is sent to, or data is sent to another file or anything like that. Now, there's a couple of ways to get a submit button in there. The one that I've been doing in the demos is just to put a button here, and you can put whatever content that you want in there. I think this is the best way to do it, or at least it's a convenient way to do it. The other way to do it, and I would have to take both of these on the test, if you did input type equals submit. And the reason why I want to make sure to allow for this one is that I think some of the examples in the chapter use this type of submit button instead. And then if you wanted to say something, let's go ahead and I'm just going to save this real quick and then open this up in if I can find where I'm at, demos and unit 14. All right, there we go. What was I just looking up? Oh yeah, so I've got two submit buttons here, and the second one, notice it just says submit. If you have the input type equals submit, you can do a value on this equals, I don't know, go or something like that. And if I go over here, then it says go instead. So you can use either of these two methods. Both of them will work to send data. If it's just a button in here that's inside a form, the browser knows that if someone clicks on this, it's going to submit the form stuff. So either one's fine. In fact, I used to use the input type equals submit all the time, and now I use the actual button instead. Okay, so after we do this, so you got the field set and the button inside the form, I will probably ask you to do some kind of form elements. So I think there's a high likelihood that I will ask for radio buttons, since that was the most of the demos that I did, or at least a good half of them. And you should know that when you do these form controls, that you should have some text to go along with the control, and that the text needs to be inside of the label. Now, there's two different ways to do this. There's the way the textbook does it, and then there's the way that I do it. So let me show you the textbook method first. And that is if you have like input type equals radio, and then all the rest of the stuff that goes in there. I'll get that stuff in there in just a minute. And then you open up a label and say, whatever the user is supposed to know about that. And then the point of that interface-wise is that I don't have to aim for this control as a user. I can just tap on the text, and it's not going to work because I need to connect these things together. This is where it starts getting feeling complicated to me. But in order to make this work using this technique, I have to make an ID on the control equals I don't know, hello. This is just example here. And then the label, I have to do for equals hello, and then match this for value with the ID value in the input. So I save that, and I go over here and refresh, and now I can click on this guy and see it selects and activates and focuses that radio button, even though I didn't actually click on the radio button. So that's what the label is for, but I think there's an easier way to do it. And so let me show you again the way that I do it instead. Actually, and that is to wrap both of these things, the text and the control, inside the label. So I just do a label here, and then I do my input type equals radio, and then whatever. Notice that this is shorter here. I don't have to put an ID on the input. Let's name this. Oh, it is named something a little bit different here. I don't have to put an IDM input. I don't have to put the for attribute on the label to connect them together. The browser knows they're connected together because the input is inside the label. This is an implicit connection, whereas this is an explicit connection up here. So if I save that and go over and refresh, notice that this one works too. It works just the same way. So I don't know about you, but I like this shorter code myself. I find it easier to do. But again, you can choose either which way. If you like the textbook way better, a lot of people do it like that. I used to do it that way myself. But I'm going to finish out this demo and review doing this technique. So in order to get a label radio group in there, usually you do it with just two questions, like the true-false thing that I was doing. So let's say I asked you to do like a true-false thing here. So a radio group, what that means is that the user will only be able to select one of the radio buttons at a time. If they select one, the other one will deselect and vice versa. In order to make that happen, let's say I'm asking them to choose, I don't know, this and that, okay? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to name each of these controls. In order to send useful data, it has to have a name and a value. So name equals, and I don't know, question 1. Someone was doing that for their project on Tuesday at night. That would be fine. And then it has to have a value. Now, not all controls do you have to put an actual explicit value attribute. On some of them, like a text field, the value is whatever the user types in to the control. And so the value starts out null until the user enters something in. In this case, we're giving this like this original, and actually the ultimate value of this as well. The value of this radio button will always be this. The user can't change it. The only way they can change it is by selecting a different radio button. So I'll do another one here. Input, type equals radio, and first I'm going to do it in a way that breaks it, and then we'll fix it. Name equals question 2, and value equals that. Yeah. Sorry guys, my typing has really suffered lately for some reason. I think I'm just too far behind on sleep here. Okay, so this or that. But this is broken right now. It's not going to work. If I save, go over here and refresh, I've got the 2 radio buttons, and I want them to only be able to select one at a time. But look, they can select both of them. They can't unselect it. That's the thing about radio buttons. You cannot unselect a radio button by clicking on it the way that you can with a checkbox. But this is obviously broken. It's not working. The reason why is because the name needs to be the same. That's, in fact, let me just go ahead and call it question because I'm only going to have one. That's what turns it into a radio group. When you have both of them that have the same name and different values. I'll refresh over here, and now it's a group. I can only select one at a time. And that's it. So that would probably be it for the forms. I don't think that you would have to do anything other than this for the HTML. It'll be something, if not exactly like this, pretty close to this, right? So a pretty short page you'll have to worry about. It's shorter than the midterm exam because you're not given any content to just start wrapping elements around. I think that's a pretty straightforward process. This one, you're building everything from scratch. So it's possible there'll be something else on there, but I doubt it. It should be something like this. Now, I will have to ask you to do some CSS at least, and it's going to be stuff that we've done since the midterm, which means either we did some box model stuff, but mainly we did Flexbox and Grid. And I think we'll keep it to Flexbox. Grid is maybe a little bit more opaque when you're first trying to get to know it. I think Flexbox is pretty straightforward. So let me go ahead and create a link element here. Style sheet. href equals. And you can name it whatever you want to, I think. Unless I ask for something specific, but I probably won't. So if I've got my CSS in an outboard file here, then I've got to make that file. I always try to do that, Command T to make a new tab, but it doesn't work. Command N. And then CSS. I won't do my usual comment up at the top there. Demos Unit 14, and this needs to be called default.css. And I might even say, you know what, Bispo said it's a good idea to keep this stuff in subfolders, so maybe I'll throw it into there. And then something I'm very likely to ask is that you just, well, this is really the only content on the page, right? I'll probably ask that you do something with these inputs. Let's take a look at the page here. So by default, these guys show up next to each other. So maybe I'll ask you to get them placed vertically. And, you know, that's going to be, it's super easy to do. I will probably give you a link to that CSS tricks page so that you you can make use of that as a reference during the exam. I don't see why I shouldn't be able to use that in the real world as well. But let's go ahead and just say that we're going to do that. So these two elements, the label is what contains the input and the label text, and they're both inside the field set. So if I want to use Flexbox to display these vertically on the page instead of horizontally, then I'm going to have to select for the parent element, which is field set. And the first thing to do is whenever you're trying to apply Flexbox, you want to start with a display flex on the parent element. And then all this will do at first is just remove that extra white space between there. There we go, I got rid of it. And then if I want them to appear vertically, stacked vertically, I can just do flex flow, column no wrap, and looky there. See how easy? 2 lines of code. Well, 4 if you count the code block in the selector here, but still, 2 lines of code. Your CSS, two declarations. That's it. So it'll be something very similar to that. It may even be that exactly. So this is what I would practice. We're going to do some practice between now and tomorrow night. Being able to do simple Flexbox stuff like this, yeah, that's something that I'm going to want to see. So that's the second component of it after the HTML. The third component will be the jQuery. Now, I can tell you right now what I'm going to be requiring as far as the jQuery goes and what I'm going to be asking for extra credit. The extra credit is going to be just doing anything with the jQuery once you've got it linked into your page, once you've got it sourced. The points, the required points, will be just getting it sourced on your page. And I can tell you this, I'm even going to give you a link to where you should go look for it. Okay, like in the text, the instructions, the PDF instructions for the text, I'll have a link to the jQuery CDN. These are going to be like the easiest points you guys ever picked up in a test, okay? But it's going to be a link to go to, and I can just do a search in order to find it. jQuery CDN.js, or just CDN. And CDN, and then go until you find this guy right here on CDN.js, or use one of the other ones, that's fine too. Copy the script tag, go back to your code. That's not the code, here's the code. Put it at the bottom of the head element, paste, and you just picked up some easy peasy points there. Okay, so that'll be the last few points of the test. And like I said, I hope everyone gets that part right. I hope everyone gets those free points there, because they are free. And then extra credit will be doing something with them that I will ask for. I'll be specific with it, but you should know, like, if you're going to go for the extra credit, maybe you get the whole test done in half an hour and you think, yeah, sure, I'll try some of that extra credit. Why not? Put the script element at the bottom of the page and do something with it here. So I probably will ask just to attach an event handler, like a click event handler, to the submit button, like this. And that, you know, if I ignore the generic function at the beginning, I can actually just select for the button and add a click event here. I'm going to take a generic function here, and that would be one piece of extra credit right there, just to have this one line of code here to get that in. Again, super easy, right? There may be more extra credit. I may ask you to, for instance, for an extra point, another point of extra credit, to log the user preference to the console. Now, in order to do that, it's not quite as easy as it might sound, because in order to do that, you have to do two things. You have to prevent this form from submitting and then do the console.log. It's not actually that hard, but it is a couple of lines of code. I have to put in the past variable that references the event object, and then inside of here, I have to do e.preventDefault, like so. And now when the user tries to submit their preference, nothing's happening. And then in order to log this to the console, you'd want to grab checked. And actually, you know what? It might be even simpler than I'm thinking. Let's see if we can just do console.log, and then let's see, checked.val. I don't know, maybe it'll do it, but since there's this is actually a selector for more than one object, I don't know. Let's see what it does. I'll save this. I'm going to open the console. It's a Control-Shift-I, or you can always get, if you don't remember the shortcuts, you can always get to the console by right-clicking anywhere on the page, going to Inspect, and then switch over to the console over here. And let's give it a shot here. So I'm going to do this and then Submit. And it's not doing anything, so let's see here. Click function, e.preventDefault, log. Well, first of all, I want to make sure that something is working at all. So I'll do something like that. Okay, it's getting it. It just didn't refresh. So yeah, it's grabbing it here. So let me get rid of this line again. I'll go back over here to refresh. This time I'll select this, and boom, this. So yeah, that's all you have to do. So this will be the part that's required, is just knowing how to get jQuery into your stuff. God, mouse. Know how to get this in there, because that's going to be points. But then extra credit points, one of them will be just attaching a click event to the button, and then another one will be logging to the console the value that's entered. But you're actually going to have to do three things in order to make that happen. The past variable, the prevent default, and then the logging the checked val here. And then that's it. At that point, I stop counting points. I give you a bunch of extra credit, and you're good to go. So I think that's probably about all we have to go over for the test. Just remember, it's mostly HTML. I really want to know that you can build a basic form and, of course, you know, a basic web page. That's important. Oh, yeah, I forgot. There's one more thing you definitely want to do, right? You guys know what it is. Go to the validator tool and check your page. Let's see if I can find it here. Where am I? No, I'm not in MySQL Server. Those, they're at 14. Index. Check. And goody, I got the green bar. That's what I want. Okay, any questions about anything or about what you can expect to be on the final exam? I hope it's clear enough. How many instructors you guys have would give you all the answers before the test, huh? I really shouldn't have recorded it, but that's all right. I'll go ahead and stop the presentation now and the recording.